Hello, my name is Scott Manley Hadley. This is Triumph of the Now TV, hashtag TOTNTV. This episode is all about definitions and definitions in relation to gender and to other forms of prejudice. We'll be speaking in this episode to Chris Nelson, drag queen who performs as Sue Gives a Fuck, as well as Winnie M Li, author of the novel Dark Chapter. That's the conversation about language involved in issues of sexual assault, that's victim and survivor and rape, sexual assault, and the implications and the uses these different terms have. And then we've got a little chat at the end with Eley Williams talking about use of the word privilege. Okay, you ready?
Yes.
Right. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes. So to you.
To me, or to them, whichever, it's up to you.
Oh, to you. That's yeah. So I'm Chris Nelson, but also I go by Sue Gives a Fuck. Sometimes I am a drag queen and a comedian. Essentially, I've been doing that for like sort of a couple of years, just working it out. Really, don't know exactly what I'm doing. Just having a go.
Cool. I think that's a good way to approach things, really, isn't it? One thing I'm keen to do is to make sure I'm using correct vocabulary. So
yeah.
Drag queen, that's good to use.
Yeah.
Words like, is cross-dressing a word people use?
Yeah, I mean, no. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it's like the language of drag is always a minefield. Like, I refer to other drag queens who are cis men who, you know, have like female personas, just always as she. But that's, I guess, like a sort of, I don't know why I do that. It's, you know, sort of like trying to be a little bit sort of like, I don't know, insider vibes or something. Yeah. I feel like, in general, just like, you know, the real person's pronouns. And cross-dressing, like, yeah, I guess, but I guess cross-dressing like generally means transvestite, right? Like it means you do it for yourself, and it's like a personal thing. It's not like, you know, a stage persona or whatever. But drag queen, like loads of drag performers don't really love the term queen, right? Mm-hmm. Because like I guess drag queen is so the default that it means that drag is men dressing as women, right? There are now drag kings, but like queen has been so the default that if you sort of identify as a drag queen, you sort of identify with the past, possibly. Yeah. But counter to that, like most female drag performers who do femme now call themselves queens to like to re-own that. Yeah. And so I feel like, sort of overthinking it, I feel like if I don't call myself a drag queen, that is sort of delegitimizing their reappropriation of the term. Because then I'm like, okay, you can reappropriate it, but it is dead. Yeah. It's not in use anymore.
But so. I won't reappropriate
it, yeah. So drag queen, yeah.
Drag queen is good. Cool, perfect. What I'd like to talk about really, before we get too in, is language. Yeah. And the different meanings of words like rape and sexual assault. And I find myself, whenever I go to say the word rape, correcting myself to say sexual assault. Yeah. And that's sort of something that, again, makes me ask questions about why use a softer term. Yeah. Why does that feel like the right thing to do?
Yeah, and it's a really interesting question because I think, you know, obviously in the past few years we've seen this issue being explored more, I guess, openly in a public way, in the media and also through mainstream media and also through social media. So we've kind of been seeing like the term sexual assault being used a bit more, and it's probably the more frequent term that somebody would use rather than rape. So I think a lot of that is just due to the fact that, you know, rape it instills this kind of fear in people that hear it, in a way that sexual assault is maybe a bit more, you know, it's a broader term in some ways, and there's a number of things that can fit under sexual assault. So it's almost a bit more of a euphemism. Yeah, I think there's a fear of using the term rape, and yet at the same time, as somebody who's a victim/survivor, whatever term you want to use, I think rape is the more precise term to describe what I had to go through. I mean, and there's a whole range of activities, there's a whole range of behaviors that fall under sexual assault, if I tell someone I was sexually assaulted in the park, that could be a number of things, and it doesn't really capture what happened to me. I feel like if I say it was raped in a park, that's a truer description of what happened to me. But yeah, I think there's definitely a fear of using rape, so we tend to see sexual assault used more in the media in some ways. And survivors and victims themselves might be more tempted to use assault because it blurs things a bit, and it doesn't define them so much as being a victim of something that horrible. But for me, I'm like, I kind of don't see the point of kind of smudging the truth. I mean, that's what happened to me, and the impact of what happened to me as a result of that rape is like everything I've experienced, and some of that's in the book, and I kind of feel we need to look at that issue a bit more head on in a lot of ways.
And likewise, again, you mentioned it there. What's the difference between a rape victim and a rape survivor?
So that's that's another issue, right? So in the
very first page.
What do you call it? The dedication, right? So the dedication is for all the victims and all the survivors, and most of us who are somewhere in between. And I was trying to acknowledge right there that neither of those words are perfect, right? Like, and I think in the kind of survivor community, most people will say nobody really likes being called a victim, and yet at the same time, survivor seems a bit too like, Destiny's Child in a certain way. There's something that's a little bit too heroic about survivor, and yet at the same time, it's a more positive term, right? But and yet at the same time here it says like one day one victim, and I've had people comment and say, well, shouldn't you say survivor? And on the other hand, it's just like, well, let's call a spade, right? A crime took place, and I was a victim of that crime, and in the book there's a definite perpetrator of that crime, there's a definite victim of that crime. And the book really concentrates on the crime itself and like the immediate aftermath. So in the immediate aftermath, Vivian, the main character, or one of the main characters, is very much a victim of what happened to her. So if you'd asked me, I would have said I was a victim, like, in the years immediately after my own rape. But now I'd be more tempted to use the term survivor, I suppose, because it's 9 years on. I feel like I've been able to put my life back together. But there definitely was a moment where my own life was very negatively impacted, and I would have said victim at that time.
That's one of those terms which in my ignorance, I probably wouldn't use as often as I do, privilege. And obviously, I guess this comes back to kind of the dictionary thing, but everyone knew that, a straight, white, middle-aged man, middle-class, middle-aged man, he does have privilege, but I don't think I had that word for it until kind of social media kind of gained currency. And I'm constantly flinging it out now. So
but it's the perfect word, really.
Yeah.
I had a good phrase recently, which was that diminishment of privilege is not the same as discrimination, which is, I think, what men get angry about.
Yeah.
The bad kind of men get angry about.
The bad men. Yeah. No, there was, it was an article about, who was it? Who plays the main hero in Home... What's it called? Oh, man. I wish I could remember things. That would be a good conversation, wouldn't it? It was basically an actor saying, like, well, as an Eton-educated actor, I'm actually in a minority in Hollywood. And it was like, you'll be okay again. Yeah. Like, how has your career suffered from going to Eton? Tell me again. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. So I think people are getting better, but there's still a long way to go.
Yeah, and the energy that goes into educating people about that. But no.